You're like stern, not
what?
stern voice.
What? I can see that.
Yeah.
Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got Benjamin B.
What's happening, everyone?
And we also have Stevie Buckets.
I'm glad to be here.
Steve, that was good.
Thank you. I consciously tried to act excited.
You're becoming more and more of a person that we have on the show.
It seems to be the case.
Do you enjoy it?
I do. It's a little, as much as I like talking to the masses, it's a little weird with the cameras and stuff, but I do enjoy it.
Well, it's camera, singular.
There's 2 cameras.
Yeah, but I don't use the other one too often.
Okay.
First things first, thank you for tuning in on the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use. And also, thank you for watching on YouTube. And in the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, Tom at realrecoverytalk.com and Ben at realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. Right, Ben?
Yes, sir.
That was good.
What's with the danger glasses?
Yeah, I was
looking
hoping
like
you were
Dale Earnhardt over there.
Yeah, Dale Earnhardt, baby. Junior. I was a Junior fan. Well, just because, rest in peace.
Why did you do quotes on that?
I didn't do quotes.
Oh, okay.
I just did peace.
Peace. I see. I thought you were being like rest in peace. But really,
Why were you hoping I would ask? Where were we going with that?
Well, I wanted to see your opinion on him.
Oh, you look cool.
Steve?
Tom is a man who enjoys his accessories.
I do.
You do. It looks good.
Thank you.
You pull them off. Not everyone can.
Yeah.
You have been wearing a lot of different hats lately. I picked up.
I just got this one. This is Travis Matthews.
You know how I know when Tom gets a new hat?
Because I wear it.
Well, beyond that,
What?
I find a previous one in my office on the shelf every time.
Yeah.
When he's done with something, he just like discards it in my office. I'm like, oh, there's Tom's
He's over
Mahi
it.
Mahi hat. He must have a new one.
Yeah.
He's done with this one.
I took that one home.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
not in there anymore. So what's up, Steve?
Not much. Just enjoying this Wednesday afternoon, getting ready for alumni.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
What's alumni all about? Have y'all ever talked about that on here?
No.
Alumni is where the current clients and former clients, we probably get a few each week. Sometimes more times than others. You know what I'm saying? And we have a speaker who 90% of the time it's an alumni. Sometimes it'll be someone that's not alumni that I just know is working a really good program and has a good message, or maybe even someone that's recommended to me. But 90% it's alumni, people who've gone through here who we know are doing the right thing and just kind of sharing their experiences, where they feel they fell short, how they overcame that, where they were at, where they're now, where they're going type of thing.
How do you feel the response is with our current clients when it comes to that?
I feel overall good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me some examples. Like, what do you mean?
Examples is we've had speakers who have shared an issue, a profound issue that they were going through while they were in treatment that maybe a current client is relating to. That happens a bunch of times. And sharing this, the current client will share either to me or in the meeting and be like, hey, I'm going through that. I'm so glad you said that. Thank you for sharing that. We've also had alumni come through that have ended up sponsoring people.
That's cool.
So
I think that's
good.
the coolest part is alumni comes in and speaks, and then we hear later, like after the meeting, oh, so-and-so sponsoring so-and-so, and you're like, whoa, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Dude. When one of our alumni that has over, a year or more sobriety, gone through their steps, they're holding a solid job somewhere, they've got living out on their own, and really, I think just being able to relate to the fact, like, this person was literally in one of these bedrooms here and literally in the same building did treatment. There's just something about it that's like, it worked for them.
Absolutely. I love it. And they can relate a lot because they'll talk about how, like, they'll mention Keith and everyone starts cracking up and they'll be like, but then they'll say everything he said, he was right about, in terms of, like, he was hard on me for a reason and it worked out. You know what I mean? And I think that's good for the clients to hear. And on that note, I love when also staff comes in and shares their story and shares their experience, because I feel like they just see the solution version of us. You know what I mean? Maybe they can't even picture us ever using, which is a compliment. And they share their story, and you're like, wow, this person knows when sometimes we have hard conversations with them that is coming from a loving place of experience on both sides.
I love that you brought up the fact that like people. So for instance, like I have a lot of sayings. For instance, an alumni will come in and speak, and they'll be like, man, Ben used to have this saying, and I used to think it was total BS while I was in treatment. And now that I got a year, I totally know what he's talking about. And like for them to tell the former clients that, it's like it puts depth and weight to it, like gives it credit where maybe you're just not far enough in the process yet to fully comprehend everything that we're saying. Because a lot of times, you know, I'll call it what it is, man. We give the client suggestions and they're like, that makes no sense whatsoever. But then like when you got somebody here that says, yeah, they gave me the same suggestion and this is how it worked out for me. And they're like, oh, really? It worked? They're like, yeah, there's the proof.
Bro, I hear that all the time. Things you've said, Tom said, like all the staff, you know, the therapists, you know, they share what they're going through, you know.
Let's see if we can name or rattle off some of Ben's sayings. I'll start. I'd rather step on your toes than step on your grave.
Treatment's not all rainbows and Red Bulls.
You get more with honey than you do vinegar.
In case no one told you today, they love you. I do. Is that right? That's close.
Close enough.
If no one told you today they love you, I do.
Yeah, exactly. I love that one. That's a good one.
I think that's it.
There's others.
I mean, yeah, there's definitely others.
Yeah, they come and they go. I don't know. Step one doesn't tell you can't drink. It tells you that you will. See, none of that's original stuff, though.
No, you have nothing original.
No. I know. We're like Paris. That's what recovery. Yeah. That's what recovery is, though.
Well, it is.
It's passed on for a reason.
Yes, it's a lot of regurgitation, and that's why it's been around since 1935.
Well, if I had original material when it came to recovery, that would have meant that I would have figured this out on my own and would have never needed help.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
The alumni stuff is really cool because and I talk a lot about this, and this is probably one of the most passionate parts of recovery and sobriety for myself is the community aspect of it. I think that you can't have long-term sustainable sobriety without community. Just the same as you can't have long-term sustainable sobriety without some sort of spirituality to a certain degree. And I know all the atheists out there probably want to argue that, but in my opinion, I think that if we rely on self for too long, it always, generally speaking, ends up in a bad sort of way. But going back to the community aspect of it, it's an opportunity for our clients to, like you said, Steve, see kind of what the fruits of our work, you know, what we do, what we put in is it shows in the alumni that come through and that speak and share kind of where they are now versus where they were just a short, 12 months ago or, even 6 months ago for that matter. And we see a lot of people that actually develop bonds, develop relationships that are based off of like healthy, healthy things. And I think that's one of the biggest pieces that people miss in sobriety is the community aspect of it.
I think too, just for me, seeing the transformation in people when they're here and they're a mess and you get this version of them, even their first 90, 120 days is generally what people do treatment with us. When they go out, they've left treatment, they've been involved, say in a 12-step community, it's a year or two later, and they come back, you're like, who is this person? It's somebody completely different. And for me, it really energizes me to keep doing this. Like to watch some of these transformations is just absolutely crazy. I mean, there's a couple of people that come to mind that were really young that came through our program that are now working in treatment, like doing stuff similar to what we're doing. And when they were here, I was like, dude, this 20-year-old knucklehead. And now they're like 23 years old and just like killing life, like literally killing it, enjoying it. They've got good jobs. Generally speaking, they're in some healthy relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, getting married, having kids kind of stuff. And it's like, it's especially seeing the younger ones too. I mean, the old people, I like seeing them get sober too, but watching the ones that haven't experienced life yet, and you watch them build all this before your eyes. Like a lot of our older folks, they already have a family, they have marriages, they have a home wherever it is back home. But like when you get to see a young kid like literally build it all before your eyes, it's refreshing.
Yeah,
and we definitely need that.
No, it's kind of crazy, right? I don't even know if I appreciate. I appreciate that, like in a bird's eye view of it. But like really looking at it, like how you just did, it's like crazy for a lot of these young people. We see their first job, maybe their first relationship or first healthy relationship, their first car, like a lot of firsts, which is like really cool to witness,
So we, and just to watch some of what we've taught them. So I'll give an example. There was 2 young folks that came through here who at the time, they minded the rules. They weren't even like interested in each other when they were here, but they stuck around the same area. They actually ended up dating and moved in together. I wouldn't call it a rehab romance. This was like a post-rehab romance, so to speak, when they both had some time under their belt. But they ended up breaking up, and I ended up hearing about it from both of them. But the way that they handled the situation as mature adults, like they were like, yeah, we're just literally using the principles of the program. We sat down and we had really good discussions with each other about what it's going to look like when we part ways, and we're not fighting about anything. And that all goes back to like the life skills and the principles and the stuff that we learn here. Even when you're faced with challenges, and that, like, no one wants to see anybody break up or their relationship fail or anything, but they were genuinely both like, I was like a little taken back. I'm like, oh, this is like very amenable. It's a testament to like getting sober is about so much more than just putting down a drink and drug.
So I know who you're referring to, and I think this is a good topic that we can dive into just for a little bit. Steve, I'm assuming you know who we're referring to as well.
I'm like 90% sure.
Let's just play this through. Okay, let's say hypothetically speaking, these 2 met in detox and they start dating in their first 30 days of sobriety. And they come into rock and they end up breaking up while in treatment here. What do you think the outcome is?
Relapse.
Yeah.
At least one of them.
At least one.
And we, as a matter of fact, I mean, we actually have a situation like that kind of going on right now. Well, first, let me say this. We don't tolerate fraternization here at Rock. If you cannot date anybody while another client here. And there was a situation where we had a young man and a young woman enter into the program and totally fooled me. And it turned out they were dating before coming here. And one thing leads to another, and we, kind of everything becomes unraveled, and we now know, okay, we have these 2 people that are, seeing each other and dating here, and it's, obviously frowned upon, but we were in a weird position of, well, what do we do now? Do we kick them out? Because, that could be kind of advantageous, but so we opted to sit them down and have a conversation with them around, okay, while you're in this program, this is what this is going to look like. You guys aren't going to communicate. You're essentially going to break up. And what you guys decide to do after you leave here, that's entirely on you. And so fast forward, this relationship, as they always do, went sour, and the gentleman ended up relapsing and, ended up in the hospital and, was in a pretty bad situation. And I share that story for the context of that's a real life situation that happens a lot of times. Now, in the example, Ben, that you were giving, these are two people that, you know, yes, they were in our program. They did not have any sort of, they were healthy enough to realize, okay, we need to focus on ourselves. And it took them well over a year to even decide to start dating.
They didn't even they had no sort of relationship when they were
right.
dating.
I don't even think they even thought, it wasn't even on the radar. Hey, do you know, I like you, you like me. It wasn't even on their radar. Yeah. And it wasn't until after they had graduated through the program, worked the steps, and had a healthy foundation of sobriety underneath them, they started dating. Completely different scenario.
Yeah.
Because when you do break up, which most relationships, you know, especially when you're just getting sober, your first real time in sobriety and stuff, you're trying to figure this stuff out, you know, and the first relationship you get in, generally speaking, isn't going to be the one that you stay in. And so they ended up breaking up. But like you said, Ben, it was in a very healthy way, you know, and they had a discussion around it. And that is a direct result of the work that they put in, not only in the therapeutic process, but also through the 12 steps and having their sober community with them. And I think they're still cool. And, you know, they just realize, hey, we're not for one another.
They are still cool.
On that point, just in terms of, we talk about how, like, which is hard to see when you're kind of in it or at the beginning of it, but how the steps and the principles and the life skills that you learn through recovery and and everything makes you kind of more of a mature, spiritually grounded person, because, like, these are two young people. I think I know who you're talking about. I'm pretty sure, like, relatively young people. They handled it with a maturity that you don't see from people, middle-aged people, you know what I mean, in terms of the resentment and the gossip and all that type of, you know what I mean? A lot of the toxicity that you see, and because of the skills, Ben, like that you mentioned, and Tom, you mentioned, like, the tools that they've learned through this process.
They handled it better than most adults.
Yes.
Like, hands down, people that have twice the life experience of them.
And people who have never had a substance abuse. I mean, this is just common human stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the thing, man. We talk about this all the time. Like, we have an unfair advantage at life. I screwed up my life so bad that I crossed a line. Thank God I crossed that line, because then I get to reevaluate everything and really take a different direction with the way that I'm living my life. Where how many people out there are just absolutely miserable their whole life? They don't quite cross a line to where they end up in a situation like I did, but, like, you just kind of stay the same. And there's that saying, when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change is when we change.
100%.
You know, so.
Yeah, it's interesting too with the, and I think it sets them up for success in any future relationships that they choose to enter into.
Yeah.
Because now you get to see, real quick, you get to see what worked, what didn't work, you know, with, you know, this person that you were with and I think they were with each other for a couple of years. And they, you know, they understand now, you know, and now they can enter into the next relationship with a better understanding of what's going to work, what's not. And it's a good thing.
Yeah. Tom mentioned this one-off situation. We have a lot of our listeners been listening to us for a long time, and we do have a very finite rule. Like, there is no fraternization amongst our clients. The situation Tom was referring to was really like a one-off where Tom got teased hardcore in our staff meeting. Like, dude, you got bamboozled.
I did, straight up bamboozled. Like, I didn't even. Anyways.
Yeah, but it you know, at the end of the day, like, we handled it the way that we thought best at the time, and which I don't necessarily think was the wrong way at this point either.
Well, you know what that shows, real quick. Don't lose your thought. Even me, who this is what we do for a living. We eat, sleep, and breathe recovery. You know, doing the podcast, interacting with drug addicts, alcoholics on a daily basis. Some clean, some not clean. You know, I got manipulated big time. And I didn't even see it. So anyways.
Yeah, looking back, there was no evidence that you would have seen it. But yeah, when an addict wants what they want, they'll figure it out.
Sure.
Tom and I, we got a lot of experience, man. So it's like,
and I give them credit, you know.
Yeah, I give them credit too on that one.
And I want to go back, when you're done, Ben, with your thought. I want to go back to what you just said about an addict will get what they want.
Ben might have lost his thought.
Yeah, man, you guys throw me off. Yeah, go with that.
Well, in terms of, and I don't know if I should go here actually, but
it's too late now.
Okay,
it's too late now. Let's go there.
As in terms of the general why this is a bad idea and everything, because I don't want to speak.
I was going to go there too, actually, separately from.
And I don't want to, because I actually I care a lot about the people involved. But I'm just going to say this: it's like that person. You could edit this out if you want, or not. I don't know. That person pretty much metaphorically was getting high the whole time.
Yeah, why would I edit that out?
Oh, I don't know, because I don't want to be uber specific, and I don't want to like.
No, so I was going to go this direction too. This was a secondary thought,
and just so people at home, I don't mean he was getting high. He was getting high through that relationship.
Yeah, he traded one for another.
Yes,
yeah,
and that robbed him of his treatment.
Yes,
which sucks.
Which is why we don't allow it.
Yes.
Because if you're in a relationship while in treatment, what are you going to focus on? Getting laid and being in this relationship, or, the actual therapeutic component in treatment and everything it has to offer?
Well, they also don't realize that they're not capable of being in a relationship. And I get that.
Absolutely.
I do. So Tom and I, we receive the majority of the phone calls for Rock with admission stuff. And, once in a while I'll get that phone call. Hey, do you guys take couples? And I instantly tell them no. But I'll also back it up with them and I say, look, if there's a reputable treatment center that you're calling, they are going to tell you no. Now, what I tell them is, hey, I'll take one of you and I'll help the other one find a place that's relatively nearby, not too close to where they're interfering with each other's treatment. But like, generally speaking, we will not take a couple. And I explain to them, like, if you go to a treatment center and you're in there together, and I've literally experienced this. So when I was doing my internship for my addiction counseling hours, I was running a group at a center, which I'll leave unnamed, but there was a couple in there, and oh man, and this is the issue therapeutically with it. The girl was like 7 months pregnant, completely showing and everything. The boyfriend was in the group. So I literally have these two in group together. And both of them are partaking in behaviors that are not favorable, for sure. And what would happen is I would try and address, I'm treating them as individuals, not as a couple, because they each have their own substance abuse issue, et cetera. And what would happen is they would start defending each other in group and co-signing each other's crap. And then next thing you know, it's like me versus two. Dude, it was crazy, and it's unethical to have that. Like,
for sure.
And you're not going to get to somebody's root problem. You're not going to be able to address behaviors. You're not stuff that needs to change, because if their partner doesn't like what they're hearing about their partner, how dare you say that my boyfriend has shortcomings, or vice versa? Like, that's what we're here for. You literally sign up for treatment for us as a staff, professionals, to take your inventory and tell you what you need to do differently. Like, that's literally our job. And if you're going to start defending somebody because you don't like, hey man, he's acting a bit skeezy on this. Well, you don't know him like I do. He's the sweetest guy. Oh, dude, you just robbed his grandma last week. Like, come on.
Yeah, right.
But the other part to it, you said something along the lines of he was getting high.
Yeah.
Off of her.
Off of her.
Yeah. Okay.
Off of her. Like, because I think, like, in my opinion, relationships are the other drug of choice, or love, or because of that validation, because of that rush, because of the manageability in many ways. You know what I mean? Especially in early recovery. He was preoccupied with her rather than himself, and treatment and recovery at the beginning. I mean, really all, but like in terms of, when I say requires honesty, it requires radical honesty at this stage, and radical transparency and openness, and be willing to, being told what's up, and with the trauma therapy and everything. Well,
there's science behind what you're saying too. If you look at the way that the brain works with intimate relationships, we all know the term honeymoon phase. You get in a rehab romance, that's exciting, right? You got the butterflies, you're going on your first date, you want to spend every second of your day together, you want to hold hands,
And just no, continue your thought.
Yeah. So the neurochemicals released are oxytocin, which is the love drug, serotonin. So you actually, through your treatment process, because you're involved in this relationship, this rehab romance, you are really riding a high that is not equivalent to what it would be if you weren't stimulating yourself in this manner. Like, if you're in treatment, you probably should feel like shit. And the good thing to feeling like shit is it leaves you in the state where you're like, I got to make changes. But if you come into treatment, jump into a rehab romance, you got all this excitement, you're like, God, I love recovery. It feels so good, right? What happens when the honeymoon phase is over? And now you're in a relationship with somebody that you met in rehab. Neither one of you have any life skills. Both of you are riding high off of each other. Now you've wasted your days in treatment feeling this artificial high, and you're like, you realize this person doesn't pay their half of the bills. They don't do their own dishes. Mama does his laundry his whole life. What the hell's this? And it backfires big time.
Yeah, well, these relationships are laughable at best. I mean, they're not built on anything other than hormones. Really, if you think about it, they're anybody that enters into a relationship in rehab, it is strictly because they want laid. And if anybody tries to say anything differently, they're full of absolute horse shit. Go ahead.
But
go ahead.
I'll disagree on that part.
Please.
Because I think a lot of people really, they have never experienced what they would call love before. And they feel like I feel like a lot at the end of the day, it's not, of course, it's a lot of that too. But I think it's a lot of people wanting to feel validation and acknowledgement. And I think people are more, not to get sound so.
Therapist?
No, not even therapist, but more like.
Steve is a therapist, by the way. You are.
Fair enough, I guess. Well,
fair enough.
I guess we could go. Okay, sure.
I mean, you see things through a therapeutic lens. This is what I like about. Lens. This is what I like about you, Steve, and which is why you get the invite to come on so often, is because you have a healthy blend of both.
I feel so.
The therapeutic clinical lens, and because just so everybody's aware, Steve graduated with a bachelor's degree in social work, and is that's a heavy emphasis on therapy stuff.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so
therapy stuff. Yeah,
but you're also
interned under our one of the primary therapists here. All that.
Yeah, and you also are 14 or 15 years clean?
14.
Yeah, so. You see through the lens of both. Which is good.
I do. No, for sure. But I mean, in terms of oh my God, I'm feeling love for the first time. Someone is loving me authentically. A lot of
I disagree. I don't think people generally speaking. I think because let me ask you something.
No,
sure. Put yourself.
Let me ask you something, Tom.
Go ahead.
You ready?
Yeah.
What about your rehab romance?
Yeah. What about her? I'll be.
Let's go.
I'll be fully transparent.
Yeah, I know. If I recall properly,
yeah,
you were ready to move off with this woman. That wasn't just about getting laid.
Let me ask you something.
We're just all asking each other stuff.
When it first, let's play this out, and I'll gladly talk about my situation. What do you think was the very first thing that attracted me to this woman in rehab was?
It's a PG show, guys.
Yeah. What, you want me to name a body part?
I was sexually attracted to her.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that always comes.
That goes without saying.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. What'd you just say? That always comes first. Now, I'm not saying this is a blanket statement for everybody.
To somebody,
yeah, exactly,
to want the love part thing.
Okay.
Okay. So
I'm talking people that are in rehab for drug addiction and alcoholism. If you have Steve over here and Ben, we're going to pretend like you're Christina. Steve and Christina over here, meet and detox. You guys, Steve, you came in on a Friday. Christina, you came in on a Saturday. And you guys, kind of locked eyes on one another.
In the Suboxone line.
Yeah, you guys met in the Suboxone.
Oh, what's your
line.
drug of
For
choice?
Christina, my voice is awfully deep. I tried.
That's where I lie and pretend, and I say I'm Pablo Escobar and stuff while I was outside. You know what I mean? And on running the streets.
You make it, make yourself into.
yeah.
Okay, well, that's a good thing to bring up.
Yeah,
and we see this a lot of time. And Ben, you talk about this a lot. The stage character. Okay, in Detox, if Steve is also known on the streets as Pablo Escobar, he's the big drug dealing, guy that nobody wanted to mess with, so on and so forth. And Christina, I don't know what your story was, but you like, the Pablo Escobar Steve over here. You can't tell me that one of the two parties here is just looking for love in a relationship that's built on emotion and so on and so forth. No, Christina, you are a female that has hormones that are, you've been on drugs for a long time and you're attracted to Pablo Escobar over here. And Pablo, you're attracted to Christina. There's no, I think the very first thing that comes is sexual attraction.
There's that.
From there, because here's the reality of it.
But
some treatment centers,
yes.
Some treatment centers, could you two sneak off underneath the stairwell and have at it? Probably some. Okay, here you can't. But some treatment centers you can. If you guys interact in that, then here comes the love part. Then here comes the more emotional tie, so on and so forth. And Christina, you're like, oh, Pablo. And Pablo, you're like, oh, Christina, I really love you, and it becomes based off of a false reality.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen the other way. You cannot argue me any differently.
I'm not arguing that, but I'm saying.
Sound like you were.
No, I was arguing. Well, first, I think the attraction part goes without saying.
Yeah.
But
sexual attraction.
I feel it's, I doubt. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I've heard it. Trust me, I've heard it all. At this point, but I've also heard you don't understand. She really gets me and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's based off of a false. False. Yeah,
it's I've never met anyone like her. And a lot of what I'm saying. It's looking, feeling the whole not. I don't mean that literally. Filling the void, if you will, with a bunch of what you think is positive stuff, and it ain't positive stuff.
But and I agree with you there, and I think that even in that perspective, when we hear, and that happens a lot with our men. They'll draw close to a female, and we'll hear from them, oh, she understands me. She gets me, stuff like that. That is code word for I want laid. I think.
Now we're back from the beginning.
That's yes, and that's where I think it also.
There is that too.
I think that's all it is. I think if you have 100 clients and all 100 of them are going to get into a relationship with the opposite sex or even the same sex for that matter, it doesn't matter. 99 of them. The goal is to get laid, because when we remove drugs and alcohol, what are the next two best things next to drugs and next to alcohol?
Sex and food.
And sex and what?
Food. No.
No. Well, I mean, maybe.
I think it hits the same.
Well, I mean, okay, let's say next best three. I would say sex, food, and money.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, you remove drugs and alcohol, people are chasing sex and money, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that's my point in a sentence. Is
I feel kind of bad letting Tom blow out in the wind here, mentioning his rehab romance. I will throw this out there.
Oh, I'm very open about it.
I learned the hard way too, where I've probably told this story on the podcast before, but I went to my first treatment ever and literally just didn't know any better. I didn't know any of these terms, rehab romance, this, that, the other, but there was this chick there that was just shy of a year sobriety. She did the extended stay at the program. And I had 30 days, And we just
extended stay.
Yeah, we ended up. Yeah, that should have told me something. But again, I didn't know. I thought that just meant you were doing really good. Oh, she's doing so good. They're keeping her around for a whole year, right?
She's killing it.
Yeah. So, but we ran into each other randomly at the beach one day when I made it to IOP and just kind of started hanging out. But like in my mind, I'm like, dude, this girl has a year. She's going to show me how to be sober. Like, this is perfect.
Yeah.
Right? Like, my intentions were good. And that's the thing is we don't have the ability to be honest with ourselves. And I could go into some horror stories that came out of that relationship. Like, dude, there's war stories for days with that relationship. But
Steve, I don't want to discredit what you were saying. I think you're right too. I think we're both right.
I agree with that. I think we're both right. I do. Because
all right, now you be Christina and you two kiss and make up over there.
No, I agree. But I just don't think that's like a huge part of it. But like, because there people wouldn't really realize. They could be like, oh, whatever, it was just a fling. But that's why then people get protective. Oh no, she's showing this other guy attention.
I'm glad you brought that up because I meant to mention that. If I understand the example we were using earlier, the drinking, the excuse for picking up a drink again had to be with this female started talking to another guy instead.
Which is we're dealing with we're very sick at this stage in the game.
Yeah.
The exact opposite of the relationship we were talking about, a good example.
Yeah.
The exact opposite.
I want to throw it out there too. I don't know, this is kind of random related, but there are such thing as, most of the time we think of males as like the predators that like looking for sex. There's definitely female predators that come into treatment too.
Absolutely.
Because you got to keep in mind, men are men. I think we could just sum it up like that, and people understand what I'm saying. But also you have to keep in mind that women in active addiction as well have developed behaviors that help them stay in their active addiction. Using men, like a lot of them tend not to, if they've been out there for a while, fentanyl addicts, meth addicts, etc., like part of their lifestyle is attaching themselves to a man. Right. And utilize them. It goes both ways.
And the validation. A lot of times you come in, you use, maybe if you're a physically attractive female, it's all you feel about yourself is the acknowledgement you've had in the past of being validated for your looks. That's what you're going to lead with. Which which I have when it comes to male and female. I'm a lot more protective of our females than I am our males in this sense. But a lot of times it can cloud your judgment because, sometimes if it's easy to kind of give the females a pass and like, oh, that can't be the female. That's the one that is, what's the word I'm looking for? Provoking this relationship, when in reality, we don't know their history. We don't know their past but I will say this. A lot of females that come in with these sorts of tendencies, it is generally speaking rooted in some sort of traumatic experience. Yes.
Versus men, we're just kind of wired that way. Men are more sexual creatures to begin with, and that's no secret, and we don't have to go through any sort of sexual trauma, emotional trauma, stuff like that to put ourselves in arguably dangerous situations for sexual pleasures or whatever the case is. But a lot of times females, that's what they go through. And yes. I sympathize with that, and it's painful to see. But there are, like Ben said, he's right. There's but it's a learned behavior. It's something that they've used it as a survival skill, for many years. And that's something that we have to help them, break free from through the therapeutic process, which can take a very, very, very long time, which is why we don't allow the coupling and stuff like that, that and amongst a multitude of other reasons. But, this kind of turned into a relationships episode.
I know we literally had no topics, started talking about alumni. I think it would be beneficial. It's been a while since you've done it, but the way that it ended last time, I think you should give the elevator version of your rehab romance there, Tom.
Why? I've done it
because
so
it's
many
got
times.
good lessons. Have you?
I feel like it. I don't know. All right. Elevator version is I met a girl in rehab. She was older than me. I was generally speaking attracted to older women, and kind of the same thing. She was very attractive. We got close, and we never messed around. I would have had opportunity presented itself, but it just never did because it was a treatment center that there was no stairwell to sneak off to.
This was your first time in treatment too.
My only time.
Your only time.
Yeah. But anyways, inside of my head, I had this whole thing built up in my head that like I was going to move. So we were in treatment in Jacksonville at Lakeview Health. Great program. We were there. She left before me because she, well, hindsight's 2020. It was supposedly some sort of like emergency or something. I think they just kicked her out because her insurance cut off or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you look knowing what you know.
Knowing what I know now. Or she AMA'd. I don't know. One of the two. I don't want to. Actually, you know what? I retract that statement because Lakeview's a very good program, and I don't want to assume that they just threw her out because her insurance cut off. She probably AMA'd, which is left treatment against medical advice, so on and so forth. And she did have a daughter. She lived in West Virginia, so you know. That I just say that I grew up in Western Pennsylvania.
You felt like you guys was meant to be.
It's, you know, we're kind of the same people.
This
she had all of her teeth.
This is going to my point, by the way.
She did have all of her teeth. No, it doesn't, and I'll tell you why. Okay. Because I was first sexually attracted to her, Steve. All right, I wanted laid.
But you didn't.
Next, when it came to realize that wasn't going to happen, my only options were to pursue a life with this woman. Okay. So we developed this plan. I was going to come to West Palm Beach and do my IOP program, and I was going to move to West Virginia and help her father her child.
Such an awful plan.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
but it makes so much sense. And probably the first time in years you were sober. And so you're like, I'm grown more than I've ever had before, which is true, but you don't know what you don't know because that's the most you've ever probably been mature was that. So you felt that was a peak.
Yeah, and we stayed in communication for some time after she left, and wasn't very long. But what I'll tell you is she started ghosting me. Just, you know, she probably just moved on with her life, you know, like most people would. And she stopped talking to me. And the emotional like turmoil that I was going through,
anxiety, bro.
It was not good. Yeah. I mean, I had she was the one, you know, what am I going to do now? So on and so forth. I mean, all this sort of,
my God,
just, awful.
But now isn't it great? Because like looking back and that requires, and thank God you stayed sober through all that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't.
Right.
And again, another risk. It's just not a good thing to do. You know what I mean? Like, I got to medicate myself. Yeah. Or almost an excuse. Too.
Here's the thing, like, that I want to point out. With the three of us sitting here, and this goes for our whole staff pretty much, like, we literally know this stuff because we've made these mistakes, because we've lived it, because we've experienced it. Like, and when I'm talking to the clients and I'm telling them, you're being an idiot, I can turn right back around and say, because I was an idiot.
Right.
You know, like when you just the way you laid it out with, I'm going to go do my IOP in West Palm and then fly to Virginia afterwards. Like if one of our clients came and said that to you, I can't imagine Tom's response.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they have said that.
I think we've heard versions of that here and there.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Anyways, that was fun. Steve, I do got to ask you something.
Sure.
How are you handling this whole Nick Chubb thing?
Not great. I mean, I'm better. It's better. It's like in the process, bro.
That's the guy with the knee?
Yeah.
Well, he had a knee.
Honestly, as a Browns fan, we've been through a lot of tough losses, and it's just been a shitty. Excuse my language. It's been a crappy, 2 decades and a half in general, 25 years. Since we came back in the league. But like Nick Chubb, like this was the first time I felt like my heart was ripped out watching the game.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, I'm a diehard Steeler fan. Steve's a diehard Cleveland Browns fan for whatever reason.
Long story.
Yeah, very long story, probably. And they played Monday Night Football. And Steve and I are texting back and forth. And this whole thing happened with Nick Chubb as the running back for the Browns, and he got his knee pretty mangled up by, Steve says a dirty hit.
Filthy hit.
Yeah. So
it was a dirty hit.
No, it wasn't.
It was.
It's so ridiculous.
Dude, did you see the pictures? So he had previously hurt himself in college.
In Georgia,
right? Who was he playing for?
Georgia.
For Georgia, where it's like his knee's like buckled the wrong way. I was like, but then this still picture of him in this game, his knee is like flopped in a total direction. It's
Same knee.
Dude.
I mean, like,
even like then, like it's a previous injury. You can't blame
Minka Fitzpatrick literally dove for his knee with a shoulder pad as the guy was already getting tackled.
But it was 4th and goal or whatever it was. I mean, you got to get the tackle and you got to risk the penalty if you're going to get called for a low or whatever the chop, however they would flag him for. I mean, it's 4th and goal versus the Browns or whatever.
I feel like he could have gone up high.
I mean, somebody would have done the same thing to Najee Harris or whatever the case is. Like, there's no,
and that would have been dirty. That'd be dirty as well.
Yeah, but I wouldn't.
I call balls and strikes.
No, you don't.
I do.
I don't think so.
I do. It just sucks because it's like a Hall of Fame career probably ended. We'll say like
how many years has he been in the NFL?
Since 2018. So like
it's funny. One of our clients yesterday was trying to have this, and again, for the record, Steve knows by far like leaps and mounds or bounds. Is it leaps and bounds or leaps
bounds?
Leaps and bounds more than me when it comes to NFL. So I just like to get into these, But we had one of our clients yesterday was telling Steve how Nick Chubb sucks. Dude. And and Steve got so mad.
Yeah, I came out with the stats.
And Steve started challenging him, and you can't go up against Steve when it comes to NFL stats and stuff like that. He'll blow you out of the water.
Yeah.
And this young kid, I think he quickly realized that
he was out of his league.
And Steve's like, you can't. What'd you say? You're like, you can't argue this if you don't have your shit together or something.
Pretty much. Like, if you don't have the stats to back it up, you can't just
make these blanket statements.
Exactly. It's just saying a player sucks. It's like on what grounds?
Yeah.
Come with something, bro. This is easy for me.
Dude, you cracked me.
So, but Steve and I had Nick Chubb for our running back in fantasy football.
Oh.
And so Steve says, but you know what, Tom? I'm an artist. And this is now my masterpiece.
This league.
He's going to work some magic in this fantasy football
Absolutely.
league. So
it's all right. I like our chances.
You just got his backup.
Got his backup over. It's a fab league. For those who don't know, that means it's not first come first serve type of thing. It's more of an auction. You got to bid on a player, and we wildly not to say overspend, but it was pricey to pick him up. But we did.
How much was it?
Ooh, out of $1,000 budget that we had, I think we had like $970 remaining. It was I think $800.
Oh my god!
It's fine though.
We spent $800 on this person.
Yeah, not again. This is
Monopoly.
This is
money.
Fugazi, as Matthew McConaughey would say in Wolf of Wall Street. It's not real. You know what I mean? It's just money for the league. You know what I mean on the fantasy site.
It's like cloud money.
Yeah, exactly. So
there is an actual cash prize at the end.
But yes, but you start with $1,000, if you will. And then, like, you have that you can spend on players.
So we have $100 and some for the rest of the year.
Yeah, which is fine. It was either this or it was not an option.
How much was Najee Harris?
Well, Najee Harris was drafted.
Oh, I feel bad for whoever picked him up.
I have the backup for him because I think he's going to be. We can trust me. We're so in it. It's not even funny.
I don't know what the backup is going to do unless they fire Matt Canada.
Jaylen Warren, every time he has the ball, he looks electric.
That's great, but you still have an offensive coordinator calling the plays.
That's not great, but he's being effective. I think Najee, and I like Najee as a person. I think he's a really cool dude from like what I know about him and seen him in interviews. But like he reminds me kind of Trent Richardson in Cleveland, which wasn't great. He just does not have any vision. He runs into the back of the offensive lineman.
Yeah, he does. Like, oh, you were in the way, so I'll just run into the back of you. And then Matt Canada's like, oh, let's run that play again.
He's not helping things.
He sucks.
Yeah.
Anyways, Ben.
Recovery?
I like it, sprinkling in.
Nah, dude, this whole episode's just been three dudes.
Yeah, kicking it.
It's like a three dudes episode.
So I'm heading to Melbourne.
3 days in recovery.
I'm heading to Melbourne tomorrow or Friday. I'm taking Levi. We're going surfing. I'm going to take him to Kennedy Space Center. Going to go to my favorite Middle Eastern restaurant, Skewers. Shout out Skewers. Yeah.
Just you and Levi.
Yeah.
That sounds nice.
Like I said, you want to go to Italian. Alfredo's on Merritt Island. Best Italian in Brevard County. Best Italian I've had in Florida, period, probably up there. And the chocolate cake is amazing. Shout out to my boy Alfredo. He is from Sicily. He's right there behind the counter.
On Merritt Island, huh?
Merritt Island.
Right there.
Ben, you should meet us up there. I told you.
Yeah, I got both boys the weekend.
There's some waves coming because there's this system right off of the East Coast, and there's some spinach, and it's pushing these. Look it up, dude. Saturday, Sunday, it's probably going to be Levi's not going to be able to surf because they're like actual real waves.
Yeah. Those are the best waves in Florida.
Well, and it's especially up there.
I'll head up Saturday night.
I'm not watching your kids if that's what you were just going to say.
Dude, I feel like you owe me.
For what?
I could name less that you don't owe me for.
What? That makes zero sense what you just said.
I got it. That makes sense.
He knows what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's it. What?
We'd be here all day if I told you all the
Exactly.
reasons you owe me.
It's not a...
Do I still owe you money?
Probably too.
I might
Tom's so
have, yeah.
funny, dude. He'll hit me up and be like,
I don't have any cash because I don't carry cash.
I need a
And Ben
haircut,
always
Ben. You
has
got some cash?
Ben always has cash on him. I never do. And this barber shop doesn't take anything but cash.
There's an ATM there.
I know, but they charge you like $5 to pull cash out. So I'll just take it from Ben and then just never give it back to him. No, I paid him back. I think I probably owe
about
you
half.
money. I owe you $50?
But then you've like kind of chipped in on lunch here and there. But
It all comes out in the
It all
wash.
comes out in the wash.
Speaking of, Steve made due on his bet because we did a straight up $50 bet on the Steelers Browns game. He lost.
I would have won if Chubb never got injured.
Yeah. So I got,
I'm just saying.
but I'm actually, as soon as we're done here, I'm going to use that money to go get a haircut.
Good. I'm doing that next week. I've been meaning to go over there.
You want to come with me?
No, I guess I got too much I got to do.
All right. Anything else, Ben?
No.
Everybody have a good weekend, and we will see you next week. Right, Steve?
Right, we will. I
All
mean, I
right.
don't know if I will, but
That is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, Tom at realrecoverytalk.com and Ben at realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. Right, Ben?
Yes, sir.
That is it. We will see y'all later.
All right.